come to order. Dr. Bertha.
Yes, good afternoon, board, or morning, still I guess, and thank you for coming. This is a Brown Bag session. This morning we're going to be able to look at one of our programs more in depth. And before we do that, I'd like to invite Ms. Janice Hernandez to lead us in invocation and then follow by pledge of allegiance.
Lord, we are meeting today to conduct matters of business. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance today. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Janice.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, moving on, I'd like the delegates. The delegates for the convention. We've already settled that, haven't we?
I don't believe you took action on it, and I believe that we want to get the lead to work on it.
All right.
Some information.
Who didn't want to do it? Well, I don't want to.
Flo and Yolanda.
But I didn't want to do it.
Oh, you don't want to do it? Does anybody else want it?
Oh, the alternate doesn't have to be there? Only if she can't be there? Oh, okay. Then I'll do it.
The recommendation that we're making, sir, on page 4, that the board appoint Mr. Lorenzo Bernal as delegate to nominate another member of the board as an alternate to the 16th as the delegate. So we do have a board member who will do it, just be an alternate.
Yeah, I know. I'll be the alternate.
Do we have a motion to that effect?
I move.
I have a second. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Moving on to the next items of information, Chaz, you want to?
106, good afternoon. 106 is an update, should have been in update 105, but the commissioner didn't have his rulings out. So you do have everything, the commissioner rules became effective August 15th, so we're kind of behind on getting this approved, but we're doing it as quick as we can based on when TASB sent it to us. But attached is policy EHBAF local and EHBAF legal. So Rob is here to answer any questions. I know we talked to you a little bit in regards to the cameras in the classroom. Legal policy, as you know, we cannot change, but local is mirror image of us putting in policy for how we do it in the district, but also Rob has worked with Wash Anderson to come up with some procedures that we're following in our district in regards to requesting and installing those cameras. I don't know if you had a chance to look through all of this, but the policy involves requesting it, notices of the cameras being posted, also informing employees.
Wait, who requests it?
Anybody can, whether it's a board member or a parent or even the teacher itself.
Mr. McGurk, can you give me a quick little rundown with that? Because I don't think, I only heard very, like 1 or 2 sentences at a previous meeting, and that's all I've heard about the cameras in the classroom. So I would appreciate a little bit additional information.
Yes, ma'am. We'll let Rob also chime in because it's affected his classrooms.
Okay. Yes, the classrooms that are affected are the self-contained classrooms in special ed, and it's the classrooms where students are there more than 50% of 50% or more of the day.
Okay.
So it's about 45 classrooms in the district that we're talking about that it affects. The next step is somebody has to request the cameras, and that's parents, teachers, campus administrators, or even aides, but it's the teachers that are in that classroom. So if you're not in that classroom, they're not some of the people that can ask for them.
Only the parents, the teachers, and the aides.
Yes, and the administrators.
And
at
the
camp.
administrators of that school.
Or a board member.
Or a board member.
Yes, okay. The next step is and we've had 3 requests so far.
Is there a reason that we decided not to do it across the board?
Well, right now, we only have the request for the 3 rooms.
Right.
But we also, since it's a new process and everybody's working through it, it is easier for us also if we start,
Sure, slowly.
yes, and make sure, the equipment's in there, it's working.
Is the goal for all the classrooms to be equipped
That's
eventually?
my understanding, yes.
We are still in the process of formalizing and finalizing a, the information for the board to make an informed decision about which company that we go through. And so we're trying to do it, we're trying to get it down to a cost per classroom. These camera systems require a server to be placed at every site as opposed to one local server. That 1 or 2 classrooms per server. They have a 6-month retention of video compliance issue. So it's a whole different system that we're having to contend with.
Okay.
There's some conversation in our district to try to keep it similar to what we already use in the surveillance system, so that we're not creating another issue for folks who have to learn a whole new system. But we're also just looking at best value and what other systems have to add. And so they're vetting those companies right now, and they are on buy board. So we plan to bring them at the next regular board meeting.
Once you make decisions about the best
Yeah, right.
providers.
We'll bring a
Right now, we
recommendation.
have about 4 vendors we're looking at.
Okay, vendors, I
Right
should
now,
say.
we're just looking at references and
Okay.
trying to make sure that the decision we make is gonna.
And the,
fit
and
our
the, and the
system.
timeline for that is,
The next board meeting, we'll have a recommendation
Okay.
for the actual camera system.
We've already talked to the companies and they've given us a presentation, so we're just looking at which
so you are gonna bring the ultimate decision to the board? Instead of having a parent have to request it at every classroom?
Well,
No?
We have to have a request. Now,
Okay.
a board member can request for the whole district.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Are you gonna bring that decision to the board or no?
we're gonna bring a decision to tell you this is what it's gonna cost per classroom, and then it's basically, when we get requests, this is what we're gonna put in.
So we're not, we as a board are not gonna decide to put them in all the classrooms?
I could say, I request that all
All the, right, I'm saying,
schools have, but the board is not, a board member
Required.
can say.
a board member can say.
So
Okay.
We're gonna seek approval.
So it
on-
doesn't have to be, my question being, it doesn't have to be voted on?
No.
It can just be
So
requested
if
by a
the-
board
if-
member?
If the board member wants all classrooms, the board is not going to vote on that?
All classrooms that meet the criteria, as Mr. Robinson explained a while ago, 50% of their day is spent in that classroom, in special education. I believe we counted 50, how many classrooms we estimate?
I think it was 45.
45? So,
Well, my concern being that I don't want to have to tell a parent, because I'm sure, parents are going to find out, they talk to each other, and at some point, my guess is that a parent will ask, well, how come those children have cameras in their classroom and my child doesn't? So
And
that's why
At
I'm
that point,
asking.
Not to interrupt, at that point, all they have to do is say, we want cameras in that classroom, and we put cameras in that classroom. So at the next board meeting, what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring you, this is what it costs per class, with the assumption that we are gonna, moving forward, that we don't have to bring it back to the board every time we wanna add it,
Correct.
so that as soon as we start getting requests,
You can do it.
we can just put the cameras in.
Now,
Okay.
there is a process for asking for it for the cameras, and they have to meet the criteria for that.
The classroom
I'm sure
does.
we'll have requests for rooms that don't,
Meet
that
the
it doesn't
criteria.
apply to.
Okay.
So,
just so the board knows, this is one of those unfunded mandates. We anticipate it to be north of $250,000 if we cover all the classrooms. And
Eventually. Okay, thank you.
That's just one lawsuit, though.
There's others?
No, I'm saying,
Oh,
if they want to sue us for something and we don't have a way to prove that that didn't happen, it's gonna cost us more than
There is a
$200,000.
caveat in the procedure where they can't file for due process. So it's a little bit different. So they can't use that video to take us to due process, and that's where our biggest liability in special ed is. So it's just for criminal.
I didn't understand. Say it one more time.
They can't take us to a due process hearing because of that, saying that we didn't implement the student's IEP and it was captured on film.
Right.
That's not part of that process. It's kept separate from that.
right,
It's for,
right,
like, abuse
Yes.
and
Yes,
stuff
abuse
like
and
that,
neglect.
yeah,
Right.
that's what I'm
Exactly
saying.
what it's-
right,
Yeah.
For
Which is-
investigative purposes.
right.
That's what it's used for.
Okay. Thank you.
This is the first reading, so if you have any other questions, just bring it to our attention before we bring it back.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jason.
Dual language, 50/50.
Yes, we have our new director, Belia, who is going to present to the board today on our dual language 50/50 model that we're moving towards at our elementary schools. And I want to commend her because she has done such a wonderful job, not only dealing with moving the program forward, but all the other things that are going on with that program. So thank you very much, Belia.
Thank you. Thank you, board members, for having me here today. You guys already have a few copies of some items, and we'll go over those shortly. Ms. Flo Bernal and Ms. Yolanda had asked me to go ahead and give a short presentation as to what the model is going to entail. And Ms. Flo and Ms. Yolanda were able to attend part of our Dual Language Institute that started in the summer. So we have our objectives here. We're just going to go ahead and go over some of the data that represents our English learners with Southwest ISD for the beginning of this school year. Our vision, mission, core beliefs, and goals that were established under the direction of Mrs. Valles have remained the same. We have not changed any of that. And we actually started implementing the dual language 50/50 one-way model last year with the dual language two-way model. So this year, we've gone straight to dual language one-way 50/50. And I'm going to explain what that entails. So if you look at the first document, is that good? So if you look at the first document that you have, these are the 16, 17 beginning of year numbers for our English learner students that we have within Southwest. And I went ahead and broke them down by elementary campuses, by middle school campuses, high school campuses, with a total of about 2,200 students. That does not include any new students that are not entered into the system yet. So what happens when our students, yes, sir?
How do we know they're an English learner student?
When they enroll with our district, they have to fill out what's called a home language survey. If on that home language survey it indicates that they speak another language other than English, they are prompted to, by law, to take a test. And once we administer that language assessment and it determines that they're limited in English, then a committee that's called the LPAC committee will come together and convene to address and identify that student and then determine best placement and services for the student.
Good.
So we do have some new enrolled students who are not showing up on these numbers yet. So the deadline to actually LPAC and for that committee to meet and identify these students, we have a 20-day window from the first day of enrollment. So that 20-day window will fall on Monday the 19th. So those numbers are not incorporated in here yet, and we do anticipate that those numbers will have a significant change on this. Do you have any questions on these numbers? So the different programs that we have within Texas that we are allowed to use and function under, I believe some of this information has been presented previously. We have at the elementary level the different programs. We have the early exit, the late exit, the dual language two-way, and the dual language one-way. And you'll see that the one that we're practicing under is the dual language immersion one-way, which, like I said, we initiated last year. And we have at the elementary and secondary levels also the ESL program models. Those have not changed. So the dual language one-way 50/50 model, what it does is it provides English learners to receive instruction in both English and in Spanish. It lends a focus primarily to the English learner, where we don't have, as a two-way program, would allow non-English learners or non-LEP students to participate in the program. The one-way 50/50 focuses mainly on just English learners and ensuring that they develop that academic language, at the same time making sure that they receive content instruction that is meaningful. So I'm not going to read that for you, but if you'll notice, the subjects are both taught in both languages. It still has the high expectations for our students, just as our general ed students.
And if I can just add to this so that there's a little bit of understanding about why we're moving to this model, is that there's a lot of research that has proven that students that maintain their first language actually end up doing much better later on in high school and college. And so I just want to assure that we're not moving this way. We have looked at the research, and most districts are moving in that direction. So it's a good thing.
And so Dr. Fay is correct. So building that strong literacy foundation in the student's native language, which in our case is Spanish, helps to ensure that when those students start to acquire that English and that transfer occurs, they're successful, but yet they're still able to maintain their native language.
Do you have any in other languages other than Spanish?
Not in the dual language program. Those students, which we do have students who do speak other languages other than English. We have Swahili, Kirundi, Vietnamese. We have those, and Chinese, we have those students participating in an ESL program. They don't participate in the dual language program because they were taught English and Spanish. So the ESL program, since there's not one, there are dual language programs in other countries and in other cities and other states that offer those, Vietnamese and English, Chinese and English. Of course, the need is not for us to teach in another language, meaning Spanish. So those students normally get placed in an ESL program. So as you'll see here, the primary goals of the dual language model are for them to develop fluency and literacy in English and the other language, which in our case is Spanish, with special attention given to those English learners that are participating in the program. And as Dr. Fay mentioned, the goal is for them to be bilingual, bicultural, and biliterate students. And so if you'll see here, what is this entail? I know this looks very busy, so this is your second document, but we had to create this for teachers to be able to help them in understanding what content is going to be taught in English, what content is going to be taught in Spanish. So everything is pretty much the same. The only content that has different standards is language arts and reading. Math standards are the same for all students, science standards are the same for all students, social studies standards are the same for all students. The only way that they differ is in the language arts and readings, which is up at the very top, where it says ELAR/SLAR, reading and writing. So teachers really wanted a breakdown as to what specifically am I teaching in what language, and when does that transfer occur. Okay. So I'll have you take a look at that and just see. The other difference here, so this is the master schedule that looks like for elementary. In the past, we have not had what's called an ELD block, or and I'm going to see if I can point to it here. This is the block here. So in the past, teachers were having to struggle as to where to fit this time in, and it's very specific and targeted instruction for English language development. So in the past, it wasn't built into the master schedule. This year, it has been built into the master schedule, where teachers will have that time to be able to dedicate to students specifically in this area for that amount of time. So it's about 30 to 45 minutes at the elementary levels.
With the entire classroom or one-on-one or?
With the entire classroom,
Okay.
because the entire classroom, again, remember, they're one-way 50-50.
Sure.
They're all English learners in the classroom.
So I have a question. We're teaching in Spanish in the first grades, a lot of minutes. My question is, so we have curriculum writers at our department, our curriculum department. Where is there curriculum in Spanish? How do they know? Are they translating the curriculum themselves, or do we have resources for them that's already?
So we have the curriculum that we've been using is Imagine and Imagínalo. We do have those as resources. The curriculum that we actually use is a TEKS resource-based system, and it's called TCMPC.
Okay.
So that's all TEKS-based. So that actually.
And it's in
doesn't
Spanish?
include- They have the Spanish language arts TEKS, and they have the English language arts.
And it covers all the subjects?
And well, remember, the only two that have different standards are those two areas. Math TEKS are the same for, there is no Spanish math TEKS.
Right.
The only one
So
that
it's
has
about
Spanish
resources.
math TEKS are the Spanish language arts.
Okay.
So in the other areas where you're seeing that teachers, like for instance, math, 75 minutes, English and in Spanish, so what teachers will do is, because they're bilingual, they do have the everyday math or the math curriculum in both languages.
Okay.
What they'll do is they'll build that background in Spanish for students in their native language, preview vocabulary, show the differences between English and Spanish,
Right.
and then transition into teaching the English and the lesson in English.
Okay, and Joanne, do we have curriculum writers in all the subjects? Do we have anyone that focuses on bilingual? Or who, so,
So
Where do
and
the
we've never
teachers-
had that. And so what we've done is we are now stipending, well, we're hoping to stipend several people and to pay people hourly when they come and work in after hours.
the teachers?
Yes.
Okay.
And so, and that's where the expertness lies.
Sure.
Nobody in one position can write K through 12 curriculum
Right.
for any content.
Mhm.
And so we are working with ELAR closely. Matter of fact, this past weekend, we did a big TCMPC Region 20 training where we brought people from both bilingual and English to look at SLAR under the TEK system, which is TCMPC for us. And so we are moving in that direction. And so that's about what I can add to that conversation right now.
Okay. So you feel that we are gonna be able to,
I feel that we're
Guide.
in a position, unlike any other before, is that we finally have, we have people moving all in the right direction in the best interest of students, regardless of whether they're bilingual, gen ed, special ed,
Sure.
or whatever. And so I feel very strongly that that message has been sent to my division, and that there shouldn't be a division of labor because of what child you work with.
right, okay,
So, yes.
very good.
Any other questions on this? And then, so on the back of this, you'll just see the reasoning behind as to why we must instruct in both languages. Again, going back to building that strong literacy foundation. We have this big Lexile campaign and movement going forward. Research does show that when students build a strong literacy foundation in their native language, those transferable skills are easier for them to acquire in that language, and they're more successful. And it also goes into to tell you as to when we're functioning under a dual language one-way 50-50 model, what is required under the law for us to be able to provide. So as Dr. Fay said, so last year on paper, we were a dual language 50-50 model. We did listen to administrator concerns, teacher concerns, and we also looked at student data with TELPAS and looking at their language acquisition and how they rate. And we were able to determine that teachers still kind of didn't have a clear understanding as to, again, what am I teaching and how am I doing this? They have an abundance of resources to pull from. It's just when and how do I do so? So what we did is we contracted with Region 20 this year, and we had them come in, and we're doing a year of dual language 50-50 implementation. And if you'll see, I broke it down into phases for you. Phase 1 already occurred, which was our Dual Language Institute, and that's the days that Ms. Yolanda and Ms. Flo were a part of. We had a dual language 101 and second language acquisition training for our teachers, and it was a 2-day training in August. Our next phase is phase 2, which part of it did occur on Saturday, as Dr. Fay mentioned, which was our teacher lesson planning using TCMC. And we have more days for that to come.
Did you actually do lesson plans, or did you talk about doing lesson plans?
The first part of the morning, we talked about the background as to why it's important to teach in both languages and what specifically must be taught in Spanish, what specifically must be taught in English.
Okay.
And then the second part of the day, they actually started digging into the system, the TCMPC. We covered content and language objectives.
Okay,
And so we did start some of that work.
okay,
What I have built in for that teacher lesson planning is actual 4 days where they're gonna start out the work, implement it. We have people coming in to do walkthroughs and coaching days, and then go back and revisit and start the rest of the planning. So we'll be doing that planning through the 6-week increments.
okay,
So that way teachers can come back and provide their feedback and input to see what we need to change,
okay.
okay, and what's working best for them. For phase 3, we did cover some of that this past Saturday, which are non-transferable skills. And it turns out that the training was actually really good. So we're gonna offer that now to all our teachers on October 10th. And it's gonna be one of our half-day sessions. So K through 2 teachers will have it half-day in the morning, and 3 through 5 teachers will have it in the afternoon. And the reason Ms. Dalila was able to sit on that, and she really enjoyed it, she thought it would be beneficial to all our teachers, because when we're talking about acquiring academic language, it doesn't just pertain to English learners, it pertains
Right.
to all our students.
Sure.
So that is going to be offered to all our teachers at the elementary level. The next phase would be the building capacity and the coaching. So we have people who, with the Sightless Corporation, who also partner up with Region 20, and will be coming in to do walkthroughs on teachers to be able to coach them and give them some feedback. Not really an evaluation piece, because we want to be able to build that capacity within them. And so we'll be doing that ongoing, and then at the end will be our program evaluation. How is this working out? Because the intent is that next year, as a district and campuses will be able to sustain it on their own, with our support, of course.
Right.
But we won't have to contract anybody else out anymore. And so what did that include? So the professional development included, like I said, the Dual Language 101 for administrators, for teachers. We wanted administrators to go through the training as well, because as they're walking through these classrooms, they need to know what that instruction specifically looks like. If a teacher is teaching in Spanish, and though they don't understand what the lesson is about, they should still be able to see good teaching practices. We also did support meetings that they're going to be offering us, and that we're going to start planning our dual language committee meetings. And we have not met with our teachers. We will be doing that this Wednesday. The first training they're going to get is going to be for LPAC. So when we schedule our next training in October, we will have these consultants as well come on in, and they're going to be there with teachers, answer any questions that they may have, and just be that guiding support for them. We also are going to build in campus staff meetings, parent meetings, and then they are also able to come in and do a school board presentation. That was part of the contract, so if you guys would like that, then we can go ahead and schedule that.
So Velia, another question. By the end of the year, will the classrooms be teaching the same materials? I mean, are we gonna have a structure in place where, you know, a child at Elm Creek dual language is gonna be receiving the same instruction as a child at, you know, Southwest Elementary?
Yes.
Are we
So,
putting that in place?
And I'm just gonna clarify just to make sure. So for instance, in the past, it was if a student attended Southwest Elementary and was in dual language two-way, but they transferred to Elm Creek didn't offer that program over there.
Right.
Is that correct?
Well, no, I'm thinking also that, you know, a lot of times what they learn is dependent on how good the teacher is, but if we have a structure in place and, you know, everybody gets the same training and the lesson plans are all similar, then technically that child should go from one school to another, say that same week, and be in the ballpark learning the same stuff that they were learning somewhere else.
Yes, that is correct. And so that is one of our goals, and that's why the importance lies in us being able to make sure that all our teachers attend these trainings and get this information. So during the summer, and I know you were in attendance, and I think one of the questions you asked, or maybe it was Ms. Flo that asked, so are all the teachers here? Because it was a summer training and they weren't required to attend, or not necessarily required, but because it was summer, they might have had other plans.
Right.
And if I can chime in, is one of the things that we have moved towards this year at the district level is doing a district level focus with some instructional goals that everybody is having to pay heed to. And so we really haven't done that before in our system, and I think you've probably heard me talk about that at our big retreat. But the other thing that's happening is we finally have a resource system where we can place everything in as a district, and I think that's more along the lines of what our kids, do we have accessible resources district-wide that every kid has access to? And I think the answer is yes, okay? But it does not limit what a campus from wanting to bring in additional resources, okay?
Right.
Then our focus from the curriculum division is to create a systemic plan for how do we guarantee that certain instructional practices happen in every single one of our classrooms, regardless of whether they're gen ed, bilingual, special ed, and regardless of what classroom they're sitting in.
Right.
And so I think that we are building this while we're flying the plane, but certainly I think that there's a better focus in our district than in my past as a principal. And this is just kind of the work that we've all been working on collectively as a CNI group. And I think they're all very much aligned, regardless of what program you're sitting in.
So the dual language is not gonna fall behind, or?
No.
Okay.
Currently already in the system, and it's the consistency. We've
Right.
had this conversation for 5 years. If you're sitting at third grade seat, you didn't know there shouldn't be any difference.
Right.
Now the pedagogy is different, and delivery is different, and the level that teachers, really exceptional teachers reach to the level of learning. And so what we've been doing in our district is really kind of looking at the data, finding out where those silos of excellence are.
Right.
Using those folks to help teach the class and do model teaching. So to answer, the way I would answer this question, so if you're in dual language at Southwest Elementary and Billy Elm Creek, the year of the class is the same, the plan is the same, everything's gonna differ from teacher to teacher. And so it's our role to make sure that we get our teachers to the highest caliber, highest quality, so that when students do go to one campus together, the families may differ, what they learn should be different, so that's kind of centralized.
Right.
In our system already. We have a yearly plan, so we have curriculum writers who come in, work together, they put together the plan, and this is our plan, you know, you can't defer away from this, because when we do benchmarking, or common assessments, it's gonna be based on these sections of the plan that should have been taught and learned, basically. So
Right.
we
I
have to
guess-
work on creating high-quality teachers in every, classroom, I think that's our.
Right, but I guess my concern is that, and we hear this from teachers, you know, okay, you want me to do A, B, C, and D, but what does that look like? And you and I have had this conversation. So I want to make sure that we have a basic structure in place that not only ensures that, you know, there is a similar level of teaching in all the schools, but that a new teacher to the district or someone that's just jumping into dual language, that there's a structure in place that they know, yes, they can plug in, they have lesson plans, they have resources. They can go to Velia and Velia can say, here's what it looks like. When you walk into the classroom, this is, of course the teacher's gonna tweak it and do what she wants to do, but we shouldn't have, 13 different things going on at 13 different schools, right?
Right, and I think this matrix kind of addresses that issue. The other thing that hasn't been part of the structure of the elementaries is the ELD time. And that is something that's built into the masters now at the elementary schools, and it hasn't been. So that was a gray area for teachers, is,
Okay.
well, I don't know when to get this
When?
work done. And so
Right.
now we've created that ELD time at
Okay.
so that it exists for every campus, as
Okay.
opposed to, it may happen at Elm Creek, it may happen at Southwest, but it may not happen at Medio. So we've built it in across the board.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the back of that document, this work is what actually, what teachers actually did. Teachers came in and created this because I didn't want it to be something that we created as CNI or as a department and said, this is how you must teach, and then it's not understandable to them or it's not doable.
Right.
So we did bring in a group of teachers at each grade level, and we did ask them to start. So what is going to be doable for you and your campus? We have to start with a framework somehow. Now, I told them this is subject to change because as we're going through and we're finding,
Right.
we never really practice a one-way 50-50 model, but it can work. How are we going to make those changes? So
Right.
this is actual work that they came in and they did, and then it was pushed out to the campuses and the other teachers.
Okay.
And we probably still have to meet with them and then go over with them this and with administrators, so then that way when they walk into classrooms, they know that when they walk into a third grade classroom, science is supposed to be taught in English.
Right. Very good.
Right, and we'll be coming to y'all with some follow-up. Part of the issue is follow-up with and accountability
Sure.
to what we implement.
Mhm.
And so in the next board meeting, we'll be bringing a kind of like another eval sheet from the bilingual program itself, so that we can actually work hand in hand with our campus administration, so that we are actually holding our teachers accountable to the plan that they created with us.
Right.
So it's a big culture shift.
Okay. Thank you.
And the rest of it includes staff and program support days, which I mentioned, the 4 days of teacher lesson planning, 1 day of setting up program guidelines and handbook. I do have a program and guidelines handbook that is created already. It's a working, living document that is found under our dashboard. And we will continue to add pieces to that because, well, transparency, it really hasn't been created in the past. So I had to start that from scratch with the rest of my department to make sure that we're covering all the different components, and it is a very big handbook. The other part is going to be the observations that I talked about, the modeling, the debriefing, in building the capacity with those teachers and those campuses to make sure that they are the experts on their campus, and then we provide the support as needed to them. And so as Dr. Fay mentioned, the walkthrough form that's coming at the other meeting, so what is our focus for that? Now that we have that ELD block built into the schedule, now that we know that building that foundation in their native language is essential. And so how does all this tie to, I know we were talking earlier about the lawsuit and where that lies and so forth. So it's all connected and we're looking at our students. So our action plans include those TELPAS language domains. They have to be data-driven. And we're looking at trends by campus and by teachers. Again, going back to this model, if you're following the model, there are going to be some discrepancies here and there, but for the most part, if it really is a true implementation, then we should be able to start to see some shifts in data. Digging deeper to really link our ELPS, which are English Language Proficiency Standards, to the TELPAS, and that's how we build language development. What will that look like in the classroom? How do we make the most of that ELD time and not just make sure that we're covering, social English language, or it's just we're going to review, we're going to reteach this lesson. No, we're going to focus on actual language development time. And then what will CNI be looking for in those classrooms with that walkthrough? Measuring language progress throughout the year. So we normally do language measurements at the time of TELPAS, and that's a one-time window. And then we get the results and we see where the students are. Now we probably should be doing that throughout the year before that window hits.
Right.
And we can start building that up. LPACs, doing follow-up with them so that decision-making is strategically guided for middle-of-year decision-making. So our students who are already at advanced and advanced high levels still testing in Spanish. And if they're already at advanced high levels, why are they testing in Spanish? Or if they're still at a beginner or intermediate level and they're not ready for the English test, maybe they should be receiving that test in Spanish so that they can be successful, giving the students what they need to make sure that they're successful. And then, of course, we'll be doing that with administrators and with teachers, where we're actually taking case studies of our students and showing and having those conversations with them. So that way they can see the data themselves. And that's it.
Bella, do you think you can log into TCMPC and let them see that product that you're looking for, so that we have? So every teacher in our system has a login for this, and this is where we will be housing all of our resources. We're even moving towards getting all of our curriculum audited, basically audited to see if it actually aligns with TEAC standards.
Okay.
And so, it could be something really, really robust. Big systems like Northeast, Northside, I believe, they have, they have a whole infrastructure to support it.
Right.
And this is really designed for districts like ours, and it has everything kind of right there at our fingertips
there it
right
is,
now. So,
Spanish
yeah.
For instance, if I pulled up grade 1 is very heavy stacked with ELAR standards and with SLAR standards, because that is an essential grade for teaching reading. If students are not reading by that grade level, then there are some big red flags. So those are heavy, that's a heavy grade level. So we have to make sure that we're teaching these explicitly and not just in one language. So for instance, kindergarten, and so it breaks it down here for you and for teachers, grade 1, and it gives you an introduction of what they should be covering. These are Spanish TEACs.
Right.
For Spanish language arts. So, for instance, in kinder, and I'll just give you an example, kinder English language arts TEACs requires that students learn 25 sight words in kinder. Well, in the Spanish language arts TEACs, that's not a requirement. So one of the emphasis that we've told to teachers is, although they're learning in their native language, and we understand the importance of building that literacy foundation, this is not a required TEAC in Spanish. So what teachers have normally done in the past is, well, I do 25 sight words in Spanish. That's excellent, that's great, that's going above and beyond. But if those students did not learn those 25 sight words in kinder, when are they going to learn them? Is that first grade teacher going to teach them, the second grade teacher, or is it going to happen by the time they get to 4th grade and they need to take that writing test and they can't write the word the?
Right.
Because that's what happened with my students. I would get them and they would write DA, because they were still using a lot of their Spanish phonetics
Okay.
to write the words. So that is an essential TEAC that must be taught in kinder.
In English. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Excellent job.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, moving right along. Do we have anything else that we need to accomplish out here before we go into executive session?
No, sorry, I just want to make a couple comments that I really appreciate Ms. Terrazas and the work that Dr. Perry and the whole group over there, Ms. Garcia. I've really done some really exceptional professional development.
Looks like it. Excellent job.
We all know we're under the microscope in this process and part of the federal lawsuit, but this is work that has been ongoing for quite a while. We also like to point out that some of our most successful elementary classrooms over time, not just recent years, but even prior to that, we're in a bilingual class. We have some really great bilingual teachers in our system that really contributed a lot of value to the future of our kids. And so we look forward to telling that story, but in the meantime, we've had some turnover in our leadership at ELL, and they're doing better. We're stepping that role and that's a lot, and we're very happy to have her leading the team. She'll be here for a long time.
And I have to say that we participated, Flo went 2 days, I only got to go 1 day, and so we met the teachers, and I have to tell you, they are very energetic, very positive, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. They were fully engaged. It was really a joy to sit in with them, because you could tell that they're really, really want to do the best that they can do, and I think that is a credit to the system.
The way I think of this is every single process in this district has been looked at and improved over the years, over and over and over again. because it's what we do, that's what you have to do. You have to continuously improve. And as technology has changed, as understanding of learning, pedagogy, and epistemology, and those things have improved, we have adjusted, and everybody has adjusted, and that's why schools are so successful these days. And this is just part of that. There, of course, we know that there's a lawsuit up there somewhere. I don't think we ought to be worried about that. That's what you got to worry about. What we got to worry about is how do we improve each of these programs. And this is a great example of the improvement that's been made. So congratulations to you. It's great.
Anybody else? All right, under Texas Government Code 551-001-551.146, go into into this session at 10:55, 12:55. And what else do we have today, gentlemen, ladies?
You have subcommittee this Thursday,
Yeah, that's right.
No.
Anything else?
I move we approve the superintendent's recommendation on personnel.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. I thought, no, somebody might, I'm not gonna say it. It was bad.
We're on 9.
Merry Christmas. What else?
a few announcements for the board. We do have the district PTA meeting. I think Linda will definitely be there. Mayo Creek, it's pretty much
It's at 5.
5 o'clock. 14th. We also have a football game. We discussed this week, 7:30 at Southwest Stadium. We have a board meeting on September 20th.
This is their training packets.
Did mention earlier the TASB trip in papers. And so, subcommittee this Thursday, I know Dr. Byron cannot make it. So, we do have you guys and Marty join. It's gonna be a short agenda, it looks like.
I'll join you
When is it?
Thursday morning.
Dr. Fay, you wanna mention about the distinction report?
I don't have all of them in my head, and then I did not bring that with me, but we do have, 2 of our elementary campuses received all 6 distinctions, Bob Hope and Big Country. Elm Creek and Crewald received 5 apiece, and then our elementaries, beyond that, received here and there. We did have our first middle school that tapped into distinctions for the first time, and that's Scobie with a distinction in social studies and closing the achievement gap. And then we went from 16 as a district to 33 overall as a district. this past
That's
Great.
amazing. So what is going on at Bob Hope? 6 distinctions.
It's a
over
really
Crewald and Elm.
small, it's a very small environment.
But they were small before and they weren't at the top of the leaderboard. And they've overtaken very strong schools.
They have been years back. They
A
were
while
up.
back.
Yolanda, they may
They've
not
always
have
been at the
scored
top.
better than.
No, they were at the
just
top. They had the most.
closed the gaps better.
Oh, I see what you're
And then
saying.
Medio did.
Is that true?
I
They're
mean,
closing-
sometimes you receive distinctions because
You
you
closed the gap.
closed the gap more